Hayato Kisaragi was a brave young man who, after losing his family to aliens known as the Savage, swore revenge by gaining a mysterious power. He enrolls at Little Garden Academy, trying to conceal his abilities, but ends up using them to impress everyone rather than remain unnoticed. This story began years ago when Hayato and his friend were attacked by deadly monsters called Savage. Despite doing everything he could to save her, he was knocked down and had to watch helplessly as she was infected by the creature before desperately trying to suck out the poisonous fluids to save her. Years later, Hayato heads to a special academy that trains students to wield anti-savage weapons called 100. Fortunately for Hayato, he has the highest compatibility score in the history of this world, making him a very important person. When he arrives, he hears two girls calling his name and immediately hides because, just like you, he can't think straight when surrounded by women. He sneaks off to find the entrance ceremony, but a group of students suddenly surrounds him asking for autographs, though he manages to slip away again. However, just as he tries to enter the hall, a delicate-looking boy named Emil Crossfode jumps up to him and acts as if they've been best friends forever. After explaining that he's also a new student, Emil heads to the ceremony with Hayato. Minutes later, Student Council President Claire Harvey takes the stage to address everyone. But then the two girls who were shouting Hayato's name enter and apologize for being late. The president, known for her ample assets, immediately decides to expel them for their tardiness. But Emil gets angry and tells Claire to stop abusing her power. After Claire explains that following orders is the difference between life and death for a slayer, Emil continues to argue that she has no right to expel people. He then reminds everyone that Claire has no right to command them because Hayato has a higher compatibility score than her, making him superior. This leads Claire to ask Hayato if he feels the same way, at which point he musters his courage and also says that she's going too far. The next moment, Claire challenges Hayato to a duel and promises to cancel his expulsion if he wins. But while Hayato hesitates, Emil accepts the duel on his behalf. After the ceremony, Emil takes him to see Charlotte Demandius, a prodigy and head of research for the entire academy. After introducing her assistant Mei, Charlotte asks Hayato if he's in his right mind, since he just challenged the strongest student in the academy on his very first day. Shocked, Emil asks how she knew that already, and Charlotte then introduces Liza, a supercomputer that essentially runs and oversees everything at the academy. To help Hayato understand how unprepared he is, she shows him some footage of Claire's 100 and explains how it controls multiple blasters at will. Afterward, Charlotte gives Hayato a variable stone, used to store his suit, and says that its final form depends on the user's compatibility and abilities. Minutes later, Emil takes Hayato to an arena to test the 100. Hayato activates his suit for the first time and is surprised at how good it looks. After Emil also activates his suit, Hayato is surprised that he already has 100 of his own, but Emil dismisses it as nothing special. Suddenly, he fires a powerful beam at Hayato, and after Hayato manages to block it at the last second, he's flustered because he didn't have time to prepare. After saying that Claire won't give him time to think, Emil fires another blast, but this time Hayato flies straight into the wall at high speed because he can't fully control his abilities. Despite this, Emil can already tell that he's strong enough to win, so they continue training for the next few hours. They leave the arena, but Hayato suddenly remembers that his sister Karen is in the hospital and he had promised to see her today. After the ceremony, he immediately rushes to the hospital, but Karen refuses to accept his apologies until he kisses her forehead. As he tries to explain how his day went, a nurse enters with breasts larger than anything Hayato has ever seen. Miharu explains that visiting hours are over, but Hayato forgets how to respond because his mind is still fixated on her enormous figure. He then returns to his dorm room, but the moment he opens the door, he sees Emil about to change his clothes. Before he can apologize, Emil hits him with a box and Hayato is knocked unconscious. Later, he wakes up in Emil's lap. Startled, he bumps his head against Emil's and asks why he was knocked unconscious, so Emil blames him for suddenly barging in while he was changing. After saying that this is his room, Hayato asks Emil why he's there too, to which Emil replies that they're actually roommates before offering to fix his shirt. While he's there, Emil accidentally pricks his finger. At that moment, Hayato remembers what happened to his friend that terrible night and suddenly sucks the blood from Emil's finger. Emil is surprised by this, but calmly watches Hayato while feeling butterflies in his stomach. After tending to his wound, Hayato explains that having survived a traumatic savage attack in the past, he finds it impossible to stand idly by when someone is hurt, so Emil thanks him for the help. The next day, Hayato meets Claire in the main battle area, and they both equip their 100s while the entire academy watches. As Noah and Liu pray that Hayato can save them from expulsion, Vice President Liddy Steinberg explains that they basically have to keep fighting until someone is unconscious. When Claire suddenly says she won't use full-body weaponry, Hayato asks what that means. She then explains that she'll be lenient with him because using all his power would send him back to the other side. At that moment, Emil logs into Hayato's transmission to offer support, and when another council member named Erica Candle tries to complain, Claire tells her not to worry because a rookie like Hayato obviously needs all the help he can get. With that settled, Liddy gives them permission to begin, and Hayato immediately uses his super speed to attack Claire. However, instead of landing a blow, he accidentally accidentally grabs her breasts and squeezes them to test if they're real before pulling his hand back and apologizing. Refusing to accept his apology and stating that no one has ever dared to touch her precious chest, Claire unleashes a series of explosions and rearranges Hayato's insides with a nasty blast before kicking him against the arena wall. As soon as she gets up, she prepares for another attack, but Emil reminds Hayato to use his barrier just in time. Claire is somewhat impressed by this, but after he launches a pathetic attack, she asks if this is all he planned to use against her. With Emil's help, Hayato charges his sword for a second attack before gathering momentum and unleashing a powerful plasma-charged blast at her. Seconds later, the dust settles, and Hayato sees that Claire easily blocked the attack with her suit before being suddenly thrown to the ground. When Claire gives him the chance to accept defeat, he gets up and fights again, but this time, she responds by summoning her Destructo Cannon, an ultimate weapon that should easily eliminate a novice like Hayato. As he prepares for the blast, everyone worries that Hayato will take massive damage, and Emil even warns him to dodge it, but suddenly he loses control of his body and feels a strange power building inside him. The moment Claire unleashes the blast, he uses this strange power to block it and get close enough to slice her in a split second. Claire quickly dodges and charges the blaster at his face for a second attempt, but after firing, she freezes in shock because Hayato has just activated his full-body armament and is using a higher-level barrier to stop her attacks. Liddy and Erica also can't understand how he's capable of such control despite having had his suit for only a day. The next moment, he lunges for the final blow, but Claire isn't about to be dethroned, so she also activates full-body armament and sends a barrage of mini-missiles through his shield. Then she uses the final form of her destroyer cannon to finish him off. But after Hayato collapses, Emil rushes out and asks her why she used full-body armament after all that talk about being lenient with him. Charlotte also enters the arena and reminds Emil that what Claire said is irrelevant, since she won according to the Academy's rules. However, Claire admits that she lost by going against her own word. As a result, they decide to record it as a draw. Much later, Hayato wakes up in the infirmary and sees Claire tending to him. He then asks if Emil and the girls will still be expelled. After being told he canceled that order hours ago, he demands to know who Emil really is, because no rookie should be able to deploy full-body weaponry and an ultimate barrier during their first duel. At that moment, Emil enters the room and immediately jumps between them to protect Hayato. Claire then says she just wanted to apologize and leaves. While Emil checks on Hayato, Claire gets into a car with Erica, who notices her change in mood and asks if she's upset because Hayato touched her private parts. Claire denies it, but Liddy also knows she can't stop thinking about Hayato, so she suggests going for a massage. The next day, Emil asks Hayato if he wants to visit the shopping district since they have nothing to do at the academy. Hayato agrees, thinking it will just be a normal get-together with his roommate. However, when they finally arrive at the shopping district, Emil takes him to get some snacks and feeds him some cream, while the other students watch and wonder if Hayato likes to play for the other team. Afterward, Emil takes Hayato to a special park for lovers, and just as Hayato suspects his roommate is being a bit effeminate, Karen calls to check on him because she's just heard about the duel. Minutes later, she appears and immediately senses Emil's intentions toward her brother. She tells him not to bother trying anything because Hayato loves his little sister. As they walk through the district, they come across a live stream of a pop idol named Sakura Kirishima, and Karen immediately starts gushing about how she's always wanted to see her perform. Hayato promises to get her tickets to the next show. Afterward, they stop at a cafe to buy food, and while Emil tries to win Karen over with treats, Claire appears. Karen immediately recognizes her and asks why the charming student council president is harassing her brother. Hearing this, Claire gets annoyed and asks who the impulsive vegetable is, to which her assistant, Chris Steinbelt, explains that she's Hayato's sister. He then decides to ignore Karen and asks Hayato if he'd be interested in joining a special student council unit that allows high-achieving students to deploy for actual Slayer missions. Upon hearing this, Emil says he has to join the unit with Hayato, but Liddy tells him to forget about it because they don't need a useless weakling on the team. Emil then challenges Liddy to a duel and summons a dragon-type suit, which surprises everyone. After Liddy also summons her suit, Hayato tells Emil not to use blasters with Karen around, so he switches his weapon to a sword type. This also surprises Claire, since a normal student doesn't have such a high-level suit. As they clash swords, Erica tries to interfere, but Claire stops her to see if Emil is truly strong. The next moment, she receives a high-level alert and tells Liddy they have to leave because a savage has just appeared on the Zwei Islands. After Karen remembers that the pop idol is scheduled to perform there, Charlotte appears and tells Claire to take them so Hayato can have his first real combat experience. Minutes later, they all rush to the control room, and Mei shows footage of 3 savages attacking the Zwei Islands before explaining that one of them is a class Trenta, one of the most dangerous forms of savage. This makes Claire reconsider her decision to take Hayato and Emil on the mission, so she tells them to stay behind. As she turns to leave, Hayato refuses to stand by and watch as they risk their lives and the lives of innocent civilians. When Claire asks if he's too stupid to realize how dangerous the mission is, Charlotte chimes in and explains that it was actually Liza who suggested letting Hayato and Emil go, as it will be their best chance of keeping casualties to a minimum. With no time to lose, Claire reluctantly agrees, and they all board a transport plane where she explains that Hayato and Emil will face the low-class savage alone. Moments later, they reach Zwei Island's airspace, and Claire jumps out of the plane with Liddy and Erica using a missile launcher. Erica blinds the savage with smoke before deploying her 100 and using its chains to restrain it. Seizing this opportunity, Claire loads the destroyer cannons and exposes the savage's core, giving Liddy a chance to deliver the final blow with her sword. With the first savage defeated, Claire orders Hayato and Emil to wait until the plane lands before attacking the lower-class savage, but suddenly, Emil shoves Hayato out of the plane. After they both deploy their 100s, she suggests replicating the technique Erica used and blinds the savage with multiple blasts before Hayato delivers a brutal blow with his sword. Unfortunately, he fails to expose the core and is nearly destroyed, but Emil attacks and cleanly severs the savage's arm. Hayato immediately attempts a second strike, but still can't reach the core, so Emil uses an arrow-like weapon to destroy it. As they celebrate their first kill, Erica uses her chains to bind the class Trenta, but as Liddy charges for the final blow, the monster slams them both to the ground. Hayato immediately decides to go save them with Emil, but Claire orders them to retreat and activates full-body weaponry to take him down. As she fires her destroyer cannon, the savage also prepares an equally powerful blast, and they end up countering each other. While trying to charge another burst, Claire realizes her energy reserves are depleted from the duel with Hayato. At that moment, the savage fires another burst, but fortunately, Hayato manages to pull her out of danger. However, instead of thanking him, she asks him why he always finds a reason to touch her privates. As the savage prepares for another attack, Hayato tries to dodge it again, but Erica tells him not to move because the airport is right behind them and innocent civilians are still trying to evacuate. With only seconds to spare, they combine their powers and manage to redirect the blast toward the mountains. However, as they try to catch their breath, the savage attacks Emil and Liddy. When it tears open Emil's uniform, Hayato sees the scar on her body and realizes she's the girl he saved that night years ago. He immediately rushes to protect her and says he remembers who she really is before the savage throws him through the roof. With Hayato out of the picture, the monster tries to attack Emil and Liddy again, but Hayato suddenly slices off its arm with full-body weaponry. As the girls realize it's the same power that possessed him before, he easily blocks the savage and begins to lose his sanity. As he attacks the savage with terrifying force, Emil tries to calm him, but he ignores her and fires an even higher level blast. The savage deflects it with his shoulder blade, and the explosion nearly reduces Erica to nothing, but Claire pulls her out of the way just in time. However, Hayato continues to lose consciousness, so Emil decides to do the only thing she can think of and kisses him in midair until he regains control. After promising to explain everything later, she shows him how to channel his powers. He then charges his sword and unleashes a plasma strike that slices straight through the savage. Once the dust settles, Emil embraces Hayato, but Claire interrupts their tender moment to ask Emil why he has feminine attributes and why he kissed Hayato in the middle of a dangerous mission. Hours later, they're back at the academy, and after telling Hayato that Claire has allowed him to continue dressing as a boy, Emil says they can no longer be roommates for obvious reasons. Hayato then asks for the explanation she promised. She begins by saying that he's a variant like her. That night, during the savage attack, she became infected, and he also shared that infection when he tried to drain the savage's blood from her body. Usually, when normal humans come into contact with savage blood, they die, but in extremely rare cases like theirs, they become fully compatible with the 100. That's why Emil came to the academy. He'd learned from Charlotte that he'd passed the compatibility test and would be enrolling as well. When Hayato asks him why he pretended to be a boy, Emil admits that he wanted to be her roommate, among other reasons. He then explains that his frenzied state was caused by the savage virus taking over whenever his life is in danger. Fortunately, he claims that he can learn to control it with training. After thanking her for saving his life once again, she offers to get him some tea, but as she walks past, Hayato suddenly collapses and ends up clutching his privates. Emil is shocked and initially thinks he wants to take advantage of their last night together, but after remembering that it's a common side effect of the virus activating, she kisses him again and tells him it's the best way to neutralize it. The next moment, Claire bursts in and demands to know what Emil is doing sitting on Hayato's lap. She tries to explain, but after slipping, she bumps into Claire and steals her first kiss. Hayato immediately pulls away and apologizes, but instead of attacking him as usual, Claire says he doesn't have to apologize this time. Hearing this, Emil accuses her of being soft on him and tells Hayato to kiss her again because he can't lose him to the student council president. Meanwhile, Sakura takes a shower to freshen up while her manager calls the academy to make a special request as they will be providing her security during the concert. Days later, Hayato and Emil face off against two students named Riatia Saint-Emilion and Fritz Grantz in a friendly duel. After one of Fritz's blasts nearly knocks Hayato unconscious, Hayato launches an attack, but Fritz then reveals a second blaster he had been hiding. The next moment, Hayato feels the virus taking over, but he manages to subdue it and slams Fritz against the wall. Fritz immediately admits defeat and tells Riatia not to be frustrated, as they thought they would have become strong enough to join the Slayer's special mission unit. After Emil tells him to focus on the fact that they made Hayato use full-body body weaponry, Erika calls Hayato in for a meeting with Claire. Once there, Claire tells him that Sakura made a special request to have him as her bodyguard for the concert. He's confused and asks why she would want him, but the girls have no idea and choose to focus on the fact that there might still be Savage on the island. Erika then explains that while 7 Savage were detected during the attack, 3 haven't been found, meaning they could still attack. After accepting the mission, Hayato makes a special request before going to see Karen. Minutes later, she's surprised to hear that he'll basically be by Sakura's side the whole time and says she's always dreamed of seeing her. But then Hayato says she doesn't have to dream anymore because he got her tickets to the concert. After thanking Hayato and celebrating a bit, Karen warns him to be careful around women and water because she gave him a fortune-telling reading and it doesn't look good. Days later, Hayato wakes up on the Tsui Islands and sees Emil sleeping beside him. When he asks how he got there, Emil tells him to forget all that so they can focus on enjoying the day together. Unfortunately, Hayato explains that his bodyguard assignment starts now, so Emil is a little bummed out, but she still wishes him luck. Later, he joins Liddy at the airport to welcome Sakura and spends most of the flight wondering why such a famous girl would want an unstable rookie as her bodyguard. When they finally arrive at their hotel, Hayato opens the door expecting her to come in, but she reminds him that a proper bodyguard usually checks that the room is spotless before letting her in. Hayato immediately apologizes, saying it's his first time on the job before making sure the room is safe. Minutes later, she enters and suddenly asks him if he'd like to marry her before showing footage of her fight against the Savage. After admitting she became obsessed after watching him in action, she describes what their life would be like as the perfect couple. After countless attempts to stop her from speaking, Hayato suddenly agrees and pins her against the wall to seal the deal with a kiss. However, Sakura is taken aback by his sudden confidence and runs to the bathroom to escape. Minutes later, she asks him to bring her recorder because she's just been inspired to write a new song. While trying to grab it, Hayato decides to gather the rest of his things. But then Sakura gets restless and goes outside to ask if he's found it. After seeing her underwear in his hands, she tries to back away and accidentally slips on a bar of soap. Hayato immediately rushes over to check on her and ends up in a compromising position. He then returns to the sofa wondering if this is what Karen was warning him about. Minutes later, Sakura gets dressed and asks for his opinion, to which Hayato replies that she looks as cute as ever, but she's disappointed by his rookie line and tells him to work on it. Much later, he watches her conduct herself professionally during a press conference and praises her for being so sociable when it's over. With that out of the way, Sakura takes Hayato to the concert venue. After her manager, Souffle Clearrail, explains his expectations for the big day, and Sakura returns wearing a special uniform that accentuates her figure. Hayato immediately turns around to make her feel comfortable, but she tells him to look and activates her 100 before taking off. While flying, Charlotte appears with Mei Mei and explains that she has a non-combative 100 that grants her the ability to create illusions and shields while captivating fans with her voice. After Sakura's manager points out that Charlotte saved his life in the past, Sakura lands and asks Hayato what he thinks. Much later, he calls Claire to tell her about the mission, and after she tells him to come see her in the morning, he returns to the hotel to shower. However, after using his keycard to enter, he sees Emil inside and tries to leave, but she asks him to share the bathroom. Once inside, she asks him how his day was, but just as he's explaining how great Sakura is, Emil gets jealous because he doesn't casually call her by her real name. After Hayato decides to start calling her Emilia, she gets up and tells him to look. She slowly turns around, and he expects to see her naked body, but she just wants to show him that her scars have started to heal after they reunited. She then makes him turn around again, but when he asks her out before tomorrow's concert, she gets excited and tries to hug him, ending up pressing her breasts against him. Around the same time, a group of variant hunters defeat a Savage and decide to save the rest of their plan for after the concert. The next morning, Sakura completely trashes her room in a desperate search for inspiration and ends up thinking about the time she spent with her mother. Meanwhile, Hayato is at Claire's summer house, struggling to keep his manhood under control because he can't stop staring at her assets. When he finally asks her why she's dressed like that, she explains that the summer house is her favorite place to relax. After noticing that he's been blushing the whole time, Claire decides to take a look and gets up before realizing that Erika unhooked her bikini top minutes ago. Hayato immediately commits the image to memory, but then Liddy, who had also been watching, jumps out of the pool to forcibly erase his memory. Unfortunately, she spills some lotion, which lands on Hayato's face before Chris enters and asks what on earth is going on. Minutes later, Claire tells Hayato that she actually called him because they received word from headquarters that an ultra-rare variable stone was stolen during the Savage attack. After explaining that Sakura needed to use the stone for her performance, Claire tells him to be extra careful since he's her bodyguard. The next moment, she challenges him to a swimming race to redeem herself from the duel. But after Chris reveals the nearly see-through swimsuit she's supposed to wear, Hayato quickly leaves the summer house. Minutes later, he runs into Emilia in the shopping district and is surprised to see her in a dress. She explains that being away from the academy means she can finally be herself. After Hayato compliments her, she takes him shopping and dresses him up like a handsome leading man. He then notices she's been fixated on a certain necklace and decides to buy it for her. However, just as they're about to leave, Fritz and Rihanna Ryacha enter the store, so they both hide in a fitting room, while Hayato worries that being caught with her could ruin his reputation. Emilia is thrilled to be so close to him and tries to get even closer. Luckily, Hayato manages to escape unharmed, and after reaching a park, Emilia goes out to look for something. At that moment, Claire calls Hayato to tell him that Sakura ran away from her hotel. Apparently, she had left a note for Souffle promising to return soon, but with the savages still out there, Claire tells Hayato to be ready and try to find her as soon as possible. When Hayato asks why she sounds upset, Claire admits that she's been watching his little date and asks if that's why she ran away from the summer house. He tries to apologize, but she tells him to make it up to her by taking her shopping too. After Hayato agrees and hangs up, Sakura snatches the phone from him and says that she actually left to spend time with him. He's surprised she was able to find him so easily, so she explains that she installed a tracker on his phone so she could locate him in emergencies. With no other option, Hayato follows her to the car and texts Emilia, apologizing for leaving her. However, he also has Sakura call his manager so everyone can stop worrying. By the time Claire finds out, she realizes she now has to worry about more than just Emilia's charms if she wants to win Hayato's heart. Much later, Hayato and Sakura arrive at the island's Grand Canyons, and after he shows her around, Sakura explains that she used to visit the canyons with her mother years ago. As they both enjoy the incredible view, Sakura begins to hum a certain song, and when Hayato says that his sister always hums it too, Sakura is surprised because it's a song their mother used to sing. She then asks Hayato his sister's name, and after he says Karen, she grabs him and asks if they were the siblings who were in a shelter during the second savage attack. Hayato says yes, and Sakura remembers that after losing their mother in the attack, she sang for them in the shelter, despite feeling insecure about her voice at the time. Fortunately, they both loved her singing, and Hayato told her that her voice was amazing even though he didn't even listen to music back then. That compliment gave her the confidence to continue singing. But after her estranged father found her, she was infected with a mysterious virus that robbed her of her voice. After many failed attempts to save her, her father sold her to a research facility where she was injected with a special antivirus extracted from the savage. Under the direction of Vitaly Tinyanov, the lab's lunatic head, she was actually cured and regained her voice, but the others weren't so lucky. They were essentially treated like lab rats. While those who barely reacted to the antivirus were discarded, others like her were constantly injected because Vitaly was obsessed with creating his own army of slayers. Sakura was the only one who managed to become a variant without significant side effects, as she primarily gained the power to connect with people through song. Using this ability, she found a way to help others endure the pain of Vitaly's endless trials, but their numbers dwindled until no one remained by her side. Fortunately, Souffle arrived with Charlotte's help and rescued her from the lab. After hearing all this, Hayato reveals that he too is a variant, leading Sakura to believe they are kindred spirits. She decides to return, having just received inspiration for the album of the century. Minutes later, they board the bus, but just as Sakura tries to say something important, a savage attacks the vehicle. The civilians quickly evacuate to the nearby mountainside while Hayato tries to fight alone. Soon, Claire learns of the attack, and after locating Hayato's position, orders reinforcements but remains worried because Hayato has to fight on his own until they reach him. Moments later, Hayato realizes he's in grave danger without his 100 suit because he can't keep up with the savage, but just as it charges another blast, Sakura deploys a shield to protect him and offers to help. Hayato thanks her and channels the rest of his energy into his sword before charging and slashing straight through the savage's core. Sakura immediately jumps on him to celebrate, and when Hayato reminds her that people are watching, she says it doesn't matter. Before he can reply, a second savage appears, and Sakura is eventually overwhelmed by the power of its blast, so Hayato tries to shield her with his body. Luckily, Fritz and Ryatia appear at that moment to support him, and then Emilia also appears, severs one of the savage's arms, and leaps between Hayato and Sakura. As soon as the savage gets up, Ryatia forces it back with a massive blast to the face, and Emilia quickly extends another arm, but failing to reach its core, it begins to regenerate. Seeing this, Emilia explains that they need to focus on the core, so Hayato checks on Sakura to see if she can manage without her protection. At this, Emilia nearly cuts off his head and asks why they seem so close, but Fritz tells her to concentrate on the killing machine. Ryatia then launches a second attack and distracts him with a blow to the jaw before Emilia slices off the savage's arms again, giving Hayato the opportunity to finish him off. However, Hayato is struck before he can land the attack. As everyone realizes that his regeneration speed is almost instantaneous, Sakura uses the power of her voice to stop the savage. Hayato quickly tries to capitalize on the opportunity, but is attacked by one of the variants from the other night. Sakura immediately tries to wake him, but another variant named Nesat uses a weapon copying ability to replicate Hayato's sword. At that moment, the savage attacks again, but Krovan easily cuts through the blast while Nakri prevents it from reaching the civilians. After severing the savage's core, Nesat continues stabbing it frantically, so Ryatia tells him to stop because he could become infected. Nesat ignores this and proceeds to lick some of the fluid, so Ryatia lunges to attack, but Nakri knocks her unconscious. After doing the same to Fritz, Emilia takes control while Krovan attacks Hayato to test his strength. As they continue clashing swords, Emilia is distracted and Nesat disarms her, but she quickly switches switches her sword to a blaster, forcing Naysat to retreat. Seeing this, Provan realizes they aren't fighting ordinary students and decides to withdraw since Naysat has acquired the cores. After he takes half and says Vitaly would be proud, Sakura realizes who they are, but they retreat before she can ask any questions. Hayato considers pursuing them, but Fritz says it's pointless since they barely have any combat gear left, so they wait until reinforcements finally arrive. Much later, they encounter Claire and Charlotte, who explain that the variants they found are actually called hunters because they work for criminal organizations like the one Vitaly runs. When she tries to explain why they've been stealing Savage cores, Claire tries to stop her because it's classified information, but Charlotte says there's no point in keeping it from them. She goes on to explain that Savage cores are very similar to the variable stones used in their suits, and can also have a drastic effect on a country's wealth because they are extremely valuable. Now that it's out of the question, Claire says she's glad they've returned safely, and when Hayato asks Fritz and Ryashia why they showed up in the first place, Emilia admits that she brought them along since they were nearby. Claire then reminds them that it's against Academy rules to confront a Savage without approval. Ryatia and Fritz's request to join the Anti-Hunters Council unit. Afterward, Emilia and Hayato leave together while Sakura gets lost in thought, wondering how the concert will go tomorrow. Much later, Karen tries to teach Hayato how to cheer Sakura up, but suddenly receives a call from her and quickly heads to the beach. Upon seeing him, she tells him that the only reason people love her songs is that most of the human population is currently infected with the Savage virus, and her powers essentially tap into that to make them feel the depths of her music. She insists that this is the only reason people listen to her and begins to cry. But then Hayato reminds her of the compliment he paid her at the shelter all those years ago, reminding her that she didn't have powers back then and still sounded amazing. She thanks him for cheering her up again and says she might become even more obsessed with him. The next night, millions of people gather to watch Sakura's performance, and she leaves everyone speechless with her 100 outfits. After hours of her usual classics, she decides to sing her first song of the day at the shelter, and Karen is thrilled to realize she met her favorite idol before she became a world-famous star. While Charlotte and Souffle also act like die-hard fans, people all over the planet are glued to their screens as Sakura's voice captivates everyone. The next morning, Sakura finally reunites with Karen and signs an autograph for her, suggesting they sing together at her upcoming concert. Moments later, she leans in to kiss Hayato on the cheek and says goodbye, as everyone murmurs in shock. Days later, Hayato wakes up in his bedroom and sees Sakura sitting on his bed. He jumps back and asks her what she's doing there. As he tries to explain, Claire bursts in and threatens to arrest Sakura, so she clings to Hayato and begs him to save her. After Emilia also enters, they all start fighting for Hayato's attention until he loses his temper. Weeks later, Hayato finally gets a break and decides to spend it at the beach with the ladies. Miharu shows up too, but that only excites him more because he can finally admire her assets all day without Karen breathing down his neck. Sakura notices how obsessed he is with Miharu and slips her arm between his charms to remind him he has a better option, but Hayato already has his sights set on a bigger target. To make matters worse, Emilia, still insecure about her size, gets jealous and tells Sakura to leave him alone, but Sakura ignores her and drags Hayato into the water. Minutes later, Emilia sees Claire dressed provocatively and immediately accuses her of trying to seduce Hayato, but Claire acts as if she has no idea. Later, Sakura decides to prepare lunch for everyone and uses this opportunity to flaunt her assets for Hayato. She then encounters Emilia and explains that she only joined the academy to earn money and fulfill her dream of becoming Hayato's wife. Upon hearing this, Emilia vows to make sure she fails, but Sakura is curious and asks why Hayato's relationship bothers her so much since she's supposedly a boy herself. After being reminded that only Claire knows about her little secret, Emilia asserts that her friendship with Hayato is more important than a future marriage to the biggest pop star on the planet. The next moment, Karen joins in and uses her power as Hayato's sister to win the argument about whose relationship is more important. Minutes later, Erika and Liddy start a sunscreen application contest to see who can lather up Claire's body the best, and for some reason, Hayato finds himself caught between Claire's attributes. Just as he manages to extricate himself from this predicament, a helicopter arrives carrying an angelic-looking man named Judah Harvey, who turns out to be Claire's brother and the director of Warsland, the company that runs the academy. He tries to greet Claire, but she responds with brutal coldness. She then shifts her attention to Hayato and congratulates him on having a better 100 compatibility score than Claire. With that, he asks Claire to follow him back to headquarters for something important. Several days later, Claire summons everyone to her office and explains that a special unit has been created to deal with the Savage attacks and that Fritz and Ryashia will be joining it. They are confused since they have never been called up for a major mission. So Claire explains that their application to join the Special Council unit has been accepted. After a brief briefing, everyone leaves, but then Judah appears and asks Hayato for a minute to talk. Moments later, he takes Hayato up a classified elevator and asks him if he knows how the academy always has a constant power supply. Hayato says it has to be the reactor, but Judah explains that the reactor can't produce enough power to run all of its facilities. He then uses a special password to enter a hidden floor door used to store a massive cocoon. After taking a closer look and realizing there's a little girl inside, Judah explains that she's Liza, the driving force behind the entire academy, and also the first artificial slayer ever created. As Hayato tries to process this, Judah drops another bombshell by revealing that Liza is actually his and Claire's younger sister. Before Hayato can express his shock, they hear a gun being cocked and see Claire about to shoot her own brother. Visibly irritated, she demands to know why he brought Hayato to this place. So Judah explains that Hayato is likely the strongest variant in the academy, meaning he might be strong enough to awaken Liza from her coma. This also means he needs to know who his most valuable asset truly is. After joking about how he could be the Prince Charming who kisses her back to life, Judah tells Hayato to try waking Liza with his power. Hayato hesitates, thinking Claire might target him next, but she gives him permission, so he pours his energy into the cocoon. Unfortunately, it barely tickles Liza, so Judah tells them he plans to capture Vitali before he has a chance to attack them, or do anything worse to Liza. Claire then tries to ask him more about Vitali, as they seem to have a history, but Judah brushes this off and tells her to try getting Hayato to have dinner with the family. After he leaves to begin plotting to capture Vitali, Claire and Hayato return to the elevator. After a few awkward seconds, she makes him promise to keep their encounter a secret. Much later, Hayato joins the rest of the team for their first anti-savage mission, and after a brief briefing from Liddy and Erica, they arrive at a specialized military camp in a different district. The next moment, a girl named Claudia Loetti bumps into Amelia and calls her princess, but Amelia stops her to protect her secret. Despite this, Claudia introduces herself as being with the Britannian Federation and continues to plead with Amelia to come home. Then, Hayato asks her what she's talking about. Claudia glares at her for interrupting their conversation, but Amelia decides to let her reveal the whole truth. Claudia then explains that Amelia is actually a princess of the Britannian Empire and insists that she has to go home, but Amelia refuses because risking her life for a chance to be with the dazzling Hayato is all that matters to her. This infuriates Claudia, so she challenges Hayato to a duel to prove he's worthless. At first, Hayato thinks she's just talking, but a couple of minutes later they end up in a dojo. As soon as the dojo master gives the signal, Claudia unleashes all her skills to defeat Hayato, but he easily beats her, so Amelia celebrates her victory and ignores Claudia's pleas to go home. Later that night, Amelia takes Hayato for a walk, and while they chat, Crovan and his girls are stalking them. The next day, everyone receives a final mission briefing, and after being assigned to their respective teams, Amelia is annoyed that Claudia is on the same team as her and Hayato. Claudia, on the other hand, is excited since she can continue trying to convince Amelia to return to Britannia. She also challenges Hayato to another skills battle to see who is the strongest. This makes Claire realize that Claudia could become a problem during the mission, so she tells Claudia to be more gentle with Hayato so as not to send everyone to an early grave. She also tells her to forget about taking Amelia with her because the academy now sees her as a valuable asset. With that out of the way, they head out on the mission, and Claire wastes no time taking out multiple savages in sight. Amelia then tells Hayato to keep up the pace so they can take down a couple of savages as well, but Claudia appears to steal the spotlight and robs Amelia of an opportunity to take down a savage. She immediately tells Amelia that she's much better than Hayato, but Amelia simply doesn't care. Erica then does a quick scan of the surrounding area to see if there are any savages left. After this, she gives Claire the green light to issue further orders, so Claire suggests moving to a new location. While Hayato takes the opportunity to feast his eyes on Claire's figure, Crovan and his crew continue to stalk them. Around the same time, Fritz watches as Ryatia and another hunter named Ali easily take down another savage. He then dismisses the tingling sensation in his 100 to tell them to conserve energy since they still have a long way to go. Much later, Hayato and the girls return to base, and when Claudia starts talking about him being a useless weakling again, he calmly accepts it. Surprisingly, Amelia falls even more in love with him because she never expected him to be so humble. After Erica tells them to expect rain soon, Claire decides to split everyone into teams for the mission, and Amelia immediately tries to stay with Hayato. Claire refuses, stating that Hayato can't be with someone who only cares about him romantically. Claudia immediately supports their decision, so Hayato ends up with her and Claire, while Amelia takes the first shift with Erica. Later that night, Erica returns to give an update on what they found while on patrol, and after completing the report, Claire decides to take charge. As she starts chatting with Hayato, Claudia senses the tension between them and offers to stay behind while they go explore the surrounding woods. She claims it's the best way to keep everyone safe and also suggests treating it like a date, but Claire immediately says she's only thinking about the mission. As they both venture deeper into the woods, Claudia stays behind and prays they'll get scared, so she can finally show Amelia that Hayato isn't worth it. Minutes later, a savage appears, and since Crovan had secretly jammed their communications, Claire is unable to transmit. They decide to deal with the savage alone. With Hayato's help, she manages to defeat it, but the battle leaves her covered in mud, so they head toward the lake. Meanwhile, Amelia has just tried to sneak into Hayato's camp, but after realizing he's already left, Claudia calls her over to chat and tells her that Hayato is on a date with Claire. Sensing the pain in Amelia's voice, she suggests she come home again, but Amelia refuses, saying she's prepared to fight anyone for Hayato's heart. Claire has just removed her suit and is relaxing by the lake lake while Hayato struggles to maintain his composure. To ease the tension, she asks how the water feels and then asks him what it feels like when his savage powers take over. After Hayato says he feels like he's literally going crazy, Claire becomes emotional and says that this is probably how Liza has been feeling all along. Liza was apparently injected with savage fluids before she was even born because her mother was obsessed with turning them into living weapons. Years ago, during a savage attack, Claire was trapped and about to die when Liza used all her powers to unleash a powerful blast in an effort to save her. It worked, but Liza has been in a coma ever since and had to be kept under close surveillance with the most advanced equipment. As a result, Judah turned Claire into his puppet and essentially defined her life's purpose: to take over the academy as president and act as Liza's bodyguard at all times. After saying that he wants to bring Liza back at all costs, Claire asks Hayato if he looks down on her for being selfish and demanding at times. After she says that everything has been to protect Liza, Hayato admits that he only joined the academy to treat Karen, so she shouldn't feel bad about herself. Just then, he receives an emergency transmission from Fritz's squad asking for help because they are under attack. Claire immediately tries to get out of the lake, but trips over Hayato, giving him a clear view. After she finally gets the situation under control, she gets dressed and promises to make him take responsibility before they see the problem with Fritz. Claire then tells him to return to camp while she goes to help Fritz. By this time, Nakri has just knocked him unconscious, so Krovan tells Liddy to surrender, but she refuses. So Krovan activates variant mode and breaks her ribs with a single blow. Just as he tries to take her hundreds, Claire appears and easily pushes them back before apologizing to Liddy for being late. He then promises to spare Krovan and his girls if they provide information about Vitali. But at that moment, it starts to rain, so Krovan tells his girls it's their lucky day. The next moment, Nesat uses his variant eyes to create weapons powerful enough to target Claire's cannons. However, he quickly switches to the explosive cannon, but Krovan lunges and knocks Claire down before she can release the blast. He immediately tries to finish her off, but Erika captures him with her chains. While Claudia and Amelia capture Nesat and Nakri, Hayato runs to Claire, who then gives Krovan one last chance to surrender. The next moment, Krovan loses control and refuses to accept defeat before breaking Erika's chains. Hayato immediately clashes swords with him, while Nakri tries to defeat Amelia. In seconds, Amelia pins her to the wall and offers her forgiveness if she surrenders, but Nakri tries to attack. Nakri refuses, so Amelia delivers a devastating blow to her body that sends her flying down the mountainside. Seeing this, Nesat replicates Claire's cannons to attack Amelia, but she easily evades them all and retaliates. Nesat then tries to replicate her weapons as well, but Amelia transforms her 100 into a sword and threatens to damage her eyes if she even thinks about it. When Hayato tells Nesat to use his eyes for good, Krovan becomes even angrier and declares that there is nothing good in the world. As he charges more of his variant attack power, Hayato manages to block every blow, but he also gains a glimpse into Krovan's past. Years ago, he worked as a slave in a mine alongside Nesat and Nakri. During that time, they were constantly mistreated and forced to perform tasks too painful for adults. After enduring the brutal conditions for a long time, they managed to escape, but had to trek across a dry and extremely hostile desert. At some point along the way, Nesat lost his balance and collapsed, resulting in a severe eye injury. Fortunately, they encountered Vitali, the psychotic researcher, who promised to save his eye and also grant them enough power to fight for their freedom. Back in real time, Krovan asks Hayato if he's fighting for a cause greater than himself. Hayato then recalls why he started fighting and says he does it to protect the smiles of everyone he loves and to make the world a better place. As he, too, increases his variant power and unleashes full-body weaponry, Krovan refuses to accept defeat and continues fighting. Naturally, Hayato overpowers him and forces him back, but then Krovan uses even more of his variant power and begins vomiting blood. Claire sees this and tells him to stop, but he refuses, saying he has to keep fighting for his freedom. Just then, a savage leaps from the lake, sprouting wings before destroying one of the camps. Seeing this, Krovan throws a bag full of variant stones to Claire and demands a ceasefire in exchange for them, allowing her to take the savage's core. As he prepares to attack, Hayato warns him of the danger of using so much of his variant power, but he insists on fighting and takes off. However, the savage deploys a powerful barrier that blocks his attack, so Krovan keeps striking, using every ounce of strength he has left. Everyone tells him to stop, but he continues pounding the shield, because such a powerful core will finally be enough to buy his freedom. When the savage begins to prepare for an explosion of its own, Nesat tells him to stop, but Krovan continues fighting and is nearly annihilated. A last-second shield activation protects his body, but he's knocked unconscious, so Hayato attacks and saves him. When Krovan asks why, Hayato reminds him that he's fighting for a better world, so Krovan begs him to protect Nesat and Nakri at all costs before collapsing. The savage begins charging for another massive explosion, so Claire attacks with the destroyer cannon, but it's blocked. Amelia then suggests they attack it together, but Erika tells them to stop because a combined attack with any other hunter in the forest would surely break through the savage's barrier. However, with their radios still jammed, Claire asks Nesat to turn off his jamming device, and after glancing at the still unconscious Nakri, she switches it off. Claire immediately calls Charlotte and asks for a quick analysis to see if the attack will succeed, and after Liza gives the green light, everyone fires their cannons. However, at the last second, the Savage takes out some of the hunters present, so their combined attack still fails to break through the barrier. Just then, Charlotte proposes a new attack plan, but for it to work, Hayato has to kiss Claire and share some of his Savage virus to make his rupture cannon much more powerful. As expected, Emilia and the others are terrified, and even Hayato hesitates, but after Claire says she's ready for anything, the Savage begins gathering energy for another blast. With time running out, Hayato takes Claire aside to kiss her, and as soon as she senses his presence, she tells everyone to prepare. The next moment, they combine their attacks again, and after Claire channels the power she gained from Hayato, they finally break through the barrier. Hayato immediately activates his variant power and charges in to deliver the final blow, but he collapses right after, so Emilia dives into the water to save him and decides to steal a kiss as well. In the morning, most of the hunters are asleep on the plane while Erica meets with Claire and asks her why Judah wants the Krovan crew to return to the academy with them. Claire admits she's skeptical too, but says it's probably the best course of action rather than letting them go back with Vitaly. Much later, Charlotte completes her checkup on Hayato and tells Emilia not to worry because he should wake up soon. After she leaves, Emilia decides to kiss him again, but then Sakura appears and runs into Karen, demanding to know what she just did. Emilia immediately claims she saw something in her eyes, and they both decide to accept her lies because they still believe she's a boy. At that moment, Hayato wakes up, and while everyone explains what happened, Vitaly realizes that Krovan and the girls won't be returning, so the final stage of his plan begins. During the fight against Krovan's crew the previous night, Allie was knocked unconscious by the flying Savage. Then her friend Wendy tried to help, but then she saw another Savage and realized it didn't have a core. Suddenly, she was knocked unconscious by powerful sonic waves, and Vitaly took a significant step in his plan. A couple of weeks have passed since then, and Hayato has just returned from a vacation with the rest of the crew, so Claire asks if they enjoyed themselves. Emilia says she brought snacks for everyone, but unfortunately, Charlotte had already eaten them all. When Hayato asks about the Krovan crew, Claire tells him not to worry because they are still under constant surveillance in an underground facility. She then tells them that Vitaly's lab was finally discovered, but he apparently escaped with all the important technology before they arrived. As a result, they plan to reinforce security before the next party, which they hold every year to honor the academy. Hayato is confused because he's never heard of the party before, so they explain that it's basically a multi-day festival to celebrate everything the academy has accomplished. After Sakura reveals that she'll be performing at the concert with a secret weapon for the fans, Hayato asks what the weapon is, and she asks him if he's deaf, since she said it was a secret. Erica then proceeds to explain all the preparations being made for the party and tells them to watch out for the cleaning robots. Much later, everyone heads to the tarmac to greet the other Slayers, but Claudia jumps out of the plane and tries to kiss Emilia. She also calls her by her real name. Again, so Emilia reminds her to stop talking because everyone still thinks she's just some random guy. Moments later, Ryasha and Fritz run into Wendy and ask about Allie, but Wendy says she hasn't seen her since the mission. Fritz thanks her for showing up and promises to help if she ever needs anything. As the day progresses, all the other students help with the party preparations, while Hayato and the other Slayers get ready for their missions. Much later, he arrives at the hospital and sees Sakura entering Karen's room. He follows her inside and is surprised to see Charlotte with a full production crew. When he asks what's going on, Sakura decides to reveal the big secret. Karen will be performing alongside her at the party. Hayato is shocked by this and reminds her that Karen is still weak in the hospital, but Sakura says it won't be a problem because Karen apparently now has her own 100 costume. After Charlotte assures her that Karen will be fine on stage, Karen admits she's a little scared about it. Hayato then decides to act like a good older brother and encourages Karen before they leave. The next day, Claire announces the start of the party. While everyone else is excited, Claudia is furious because she's been assigned to guard the catwalk, which means she definitely won't see Emilia. Around the same time, Krovan loses his temper with Mei, and after she leaves, he wonders how the academy can be celebrating despite the risk of a Savage attack. When Nakri starts saying they're definitely up to no good and points out that they've taken her variable stones, Krovan reminds her that they let Nesat keep hers because she needs it to function. As Nesat reminisces about how Emilia forgave her, Nakri calls them both weak and reminds them of when Vitaly said the Slayers were trying to take over the world. Minutes later, Hayato and Emilia finally get a break to explore the party, but Emilia starts clinging to him a little too tightly, so he tries to stop her. Just then, they hear someone call their name and are surprised to see Ryachia and Erica dressed as maids at a themed cafe. Erica immediately tries to explain how she got involved, but Emilia snaps a couple of photos to show everyone later. Erica is embarrassed and tries to stop her, but Emilia just keeps taking more. Moments later, they enter the cafe, and after all the other maids welcome them, Emilia notices that Hayato has been eyeing the outfits with interest, so she wishes to be one of them, but Erica decides to grant that wish. Hayato reminds her that they should keep her true identity a secret, but all Erica cares about is getting revenge for the photos Emilia took earlier. Several minutes later, the maids reveal Emilia in her new guise and force Hayato to approach her. In the process, he trips and ends up grabbing her privates. She's shocked, so the girls take countless photos to distribute all over campus. However, while Hayato Hayato is terrified at the prospect of Emilia being exposed. She starts to enjoy the idea of rumors about their relationship spreading. Much later, everyone heads to the concert venue for Sakura's performance. Hayato goes to check on Karen, who is obviously nervous. After Sakura and Souffle arrive for one last rehearsal, Judah appears to wish them luck. Several minutes later, Sakura takes the stage and delivers an electrifying performance that leaves everyone mesmerized. As everyone sings and dances, Wendy switches places with a guard at the entrance and helps Vitaly sneak into a vital control facility, only to be eliminated and discarded afterward. By this time, Sakura has just finished telling everyone a short story about how Karen inspired her. She begins to sing and, after bringing Karen onto the stage, helps her overcome her stage fright. The next moment, Karen activates her 100 and transforms from a hospital patient into a powerful slayer before launching into a magnificent performance. As the concert progresses, Claire continues to oversee the party from the control room, but then Chris tells her about a student they found unconscious. She immediately requests security footage, so he shows her a clip of the people who found Wendy. They ask her how she ended up unconscious in such a high-profile venue, but all Wendy remembers is seeing a strange, red, horeless savage. Back at the party, everything is proceeding as planned, and Vitaly observes calmly. Around the same time, Noah and Lou decide to take a break, but then they notice a robotic bee flying nearby and initially think it's part of the activities or some kind of group project. Ryashia and Erika, on the other hand, notice that something is wrong. Erika captures the bee with her 100, but it suddenly explodes. At that moment, Ryashia sees another bee heading for a power plant, so she activates her suit and destroys it. The next moment, explosions begin to be heard throughout the academy, destroying several power plants and gas stations at once. While Noah and Lou immediately initiate the evacuation protocol, Chris and Liddy desperately try to get things under control, because several power plants across the campus have also collapsed. As Chris begins switching to the emergency power systems, Liddy heads off to help, and Claire tries to figure out the cause of the explosions. Moments later, Noah and Lou radio in that the cleaning robots are actually responsible, so Claire orders Chris to shut down as many as possible. At that moment, Erika calls to tell her about the variable stones they found at the explosion sites, and Charlotte, who arrived quickly, realizes that Vitaly is behind it all. Claire immediately orders all activities suspended and calls in all active slayers to evacuate the civilians. Almost simultaneously, Souffle alerts Sakura so she can stop the performance, but the explosions reach them as well. As people begin to panic, Sakura uses her powers to calm their nerves and promises to keep them safe. Back in mission control, Charlotte finally sees the footage of Wendy letting Vitaly in, and Claire quickly realizes she'll be going after the Krovan crew. She calls Emilia and Hayato to increase security on the secret levels. Meanwhile, Erika and Ryatia are still at the festival fighting off mechanical bees while trying to evacuate civilians. Fortunately, Liddy and a group of other slayers arrive to help Fritz, but with the entire academy in chaos, their hands are full. During this fight, one of the bees sneaks into the data center and begins corrupting some of the radar systems. Moments later, Claudia is still lamenting not being able to be at the festival, preventing Hayato from getting close to Emilia. At that moment, she sees an approaching plane and wonders why runway control isn't sending a warning message or identifying it as hostile. After it crashes into the academy, the officers in the control room discover the corrupted systems, but it's too late because a swarm of red savages emerges from the impact, and all the usual weapons fail to stop them. After observing the savages more closely and seeing that they all lack cores, Charlotte explains that this must be why Vitaly was going after savages' corpses and stealing their variable stones. With no time to lose, Claire gives Erika and Liddy instructions on how to help bring the situation under control. At that moment, Hayato and Emilia appear, so Claire tells them to make sure Vitaly doesn't reach the Krovan crew. Just then, the radar detects another aircraft approaching, and missiles are fired until one hits the plane's engines. Despite this, it crashes right in front of the concert venue, further terrorizing the civilians. Just as Claire tells Hayato and Emilia about the savage replicants that emerged from the first plane, a second wave emerges from the second and immediately begins attacking Sakura's barrier. Within seconds, the barrier begins to weaken, so Claire decides to go help them, but Chris stops her, saying they need someone to take charge or the entire academy will collapse. Hearing this, Hayato decides to go with Emilia, but then Liza also agrees to go with him, which frightens Claire about what might happen to them. However, after Hayato reminds her of their conversation at the lake, she tells them to be careful, but Emilia gets jealous and wants to know about their conversation. Charlotte then sends Mei to check on Krovan, who has just started hearing the explosions. While wondering what could be causing them, Nakri says it's definitely Vitaly carrying out her mission. At that moment, Nesat reminds them that there's a festival underway, and this makes Krovan realize that Vitaly is willing to sacrifice innocence for her cause. The next moment, Vitaly appears and explains the plan while handing out their variable stones, but only Nakri is eager to fight. Krovan points out that the Slayers aren't as evil as Vitaly always made them out to be, and after sensing that he and Nesat are questioning her loyalty, she fries their brains with a sonic wave device. Back on the surface, Liddy decides to annihilate the savages instead of searching for a core, and everyone follows suit, including Claudia, who is surprisingly excited to be in such a dangerous situation. Sakura, on the other hand, feels the exact opposite because as the Savage are about to break through the barrier. But thankfully, Hayato and Emilia finally appear to help them. While he and Emilia plan their attack, Mei spots Vitaly and quickly dodges his bullets before attacking him. However, just as she tries to check on Krovan and the girls, Vitaly shoots her in the shoulder and mockingly asks if she's just a servant android. After declaring that she's more than just a robot, Mei tries to stop Krovan and the girls from leaving, but he knocks her unconscious. Moments later, Vitaly and Krovan's crew force their way into one of the deeper levels, and after hearing this, Claire realizes he's after Liza. The next moment, Judah calls her to tell her there's nothing to worry about, and when Claire tries to ask him what his plan is, he simply says she has to trust him. Almost simultaneously, Hayato has just taken down one of the Savage replicants, but since they have no core, his attack is useless. Back at the facility, Nakri is electrocuted by the security system and passes out, but Vitaly walks over her and orders Krovan to do the same. Naturally, he and Nesat hesitate, so she tries to fry their brains again, but Mei shoots the remote control and runs toward her, saying that Krovan and the girls aren't toys. Enraged, Vitaly starts shooting and manages to hit Mei in the leg, but she keeps advancing until Vitaly flees on her own. With the mind control broken, Krovan decides to go after Vitaly, but after seeing the damage to Mei's leg, he becomes worried. However, she tells them not to bother stopping because help is already on the way. Unfortunately, Vitaly has just found the secret apartment where Liza is being held, but as he approaches, Judah comes out and confronts her. He then points a gun at her and says he did all this for revenge because she abandoned him after using her genius for his schemes. Judah doesn't even bother to deny it and asks if she would come back if he promises to love her again. But Vitaly refuses to fall for his tricks this time. After she promises to show him how weak the Slayers are, the replicants begin emitting dangerous sound waves that paralyze everyone in the academy, making it impossible for them to fight back. Judah then praises Vitaly for being so meticulous with her plans, but she grows tired of seeing him alive and begins shooting at him and Liza. After running out of bullets, she is shocked to see that Liza has finally awakened. She gets up and asks Judah how he did it. He then explains that his attacks, combined with the power of Sakura's chant, are what led to Liza's awakening. After Judah further explains that he planned everything from the beginning to create this exact moment, Vitaly loses control and begins shooting at Liza again until he runs out of ammunition. Just as he calls Liza a monster, his face goes pale because Judah finally decides to use his weapon as well. She immediately collapses, so Judah takes her hand and thanks her for being useful until the very end. In a surprising twist, Vitaly admits that a part of her is glad she was useful to him. After dying with a smile, Judah dismisses her body and tells Liza she should continue resting in the cocoon, but she refuses, saying she needs to do something first. By then, one of the Savage replicants has just knocked Emilia unconscious, and as Hayato tries to stop him, he too is struck. As the Savage continues to shatter Sakura's shield, Liza appears and says she can actually help everyone by singing with Karen. She then uses her powers to heal Karen's legs, and the two begin a new performance. All the Slayers regain their strength and realize that their voices are blocking the Savage's sound waves. The next moment, Hayato activates his full-body armament along with his variant power before launching a devastating attack that annihilates the Savage. However, the overuse of his variant power causes Hayato to faint, so Claire requests a quick check of his vital signs. After Chris says they have nothing to worry about, the Savage begins to regenerate, and before they can react, charges up an explosion capable of destroying the entire academy. But at the last second, Krovan and the girls deflect the blast and manage to push it off the edge. Just as they try to catch their breath, the Savage returns and knocks Nakri unconscious. Krovan then tells Nesat to keep her safe before using his variant powers to attack the Savage. After landing several devastating blows, the Savage attacks him with an overwhelming electrical force. Seeing this, Claire decides to go help them, but as the seconds tick by until the next blast, Nesat decides to risk everything to save everyone. When Claire reaches them, she sees that Nesat used his powers to replicate the Savage himself and manages to defeat it, but then she begins to lose her sanity under the overwhelming power of the Savage virus. Chris then tells Claire that he will soon release enough energy to turn the academy to dust, so Claire activates her destructive cannon and plans to finish Nesat off since they have no other options. At that moment, Liza appears to Hayato and tells him that he has to get up because Nesat's life is in danger. He then wakes up and asks Claire for a moment to stop his rampage. Claire replies that they literally don't have time to waste, but he manages to convince her. She then steps back as he begins to push Nesat back and reminds her that people care about her very much. Nesat hears this and begins to respond, but the virus continues to infect her mind, so she lashes out and tries to eliminate Hayato, all while her power level increases second by second. After Hayato blocks all of her attacks, Claire realizes that Nesat is about to explode and begins to doubt her trust in Hayato. However, at the last second, she finally manages to reach Nesat, and after reminding her that she is no longer anyone's slave, she regains her sanity and returns to her normal form. Krovan and Nakri immediately rush to her side, and while they thank Hayato for his help, Liza praises Claire for doing an amazing job before returning to the cocoon to rest. Hours later, a fireworks display begins to celebrate the academy's survival, and Emilia takes the opportunity to kiss Hayato. He reminds her that they must keep their identities secret, but she stops him, saying that the only thing that matters is that she always wants to be with him. After admitting that he feels the same way, he kisses her again, but then, literally, everyone they know appears and is shocked to see them kissing. Since everyone thinks Emilia is a boy, they panic, thinking Hayato has had different tastes all along. However, after Claudia confronts him and demands to know what he's doing to the beautiful princess of the Gutenberg royal family, everyone demands an explanation. Emilia then realizes there's no point in hiding it anymore, so she admits she's been pretending to be a normal student all this time. While everyone else expresses shock at this revelation, Claire activates the destructor cannon and accuses Emilia of misconduct on school grounds before launching them both into space. It remains to be seen whether Hayato truly wants to make a deal with Emilia or if he's simply trying to get her to join his group. Comment for part 2 to find out, and don't forget to like and turn on notifications for more recaps like this.